Chosen one. You are not here by accident. Heaven aligned this moment with precision, and your spirit was pulled into this word by divine appointment. Anointed one, you are standing at the threshold of a supernatural shift, a holy transition where what was withheld is about to be released. The financial breakthrough you've been praying for, the divine wealth transfer written with your name on it, is closer than you think. Just as Isaiah declared that God is doing a new thing, it is now springing forth in your life. Breathe in, chosen one. The atmosphere around you is changing. The revelation begins now. Chosen one. There comes a point in every divine journey where the familiar becomes too small, too quiet, too limited for the magnitude of what God is awakening inside you. You've been feeling it for a while now, a subtle restlessness, a quiet, pulling a sense that you no longer fit where you used to belong. And no matter how much you try to settle back into old rhythms, your spirit keeps rising, stretching, whispering, there is more. This isn't rebellion. This isn't confusion. This is divine evolution. Heaven is enlarging you from the inside out. Anointed one, what you are experiencing is what I once walked through myself, a sacred discontent that only shows up when God is preparing to elevate you into an entirely new dimension. I remember that season clearly, sitting in places I had sat for years, listening to voices I once depended on, surrounded by people I loved, and suddenly feeling like my spirit had stepped into another room while my body stayed seated in the old one. I couldn't explain it to anyone. I couldn't even fully explain it to myself. All I knew was that something in me had shifted. What once nourished me now felt like leftovers. What once stirred me now felt like echoes. Heaven wasn't asking me to quit my faith, it was calling me deeper into it. You're in that same transition now, chosen one, that inner stretching, that subtle ache, that discomfort you feel in places that once felt sacred. It's not spiritual decline, it's spiritual acceleration. God is moving you, rerouting you, repositioning you for something He cannot release to you while you remain in the familiar. Because the familiar has limits. Familiar environments can only sustain former versions of you. And God is now calling forth the future version, the one who hears His voice without filters, the one who walks with Him without intermediaries, the one who carries an anointing too large to be trapped inside walls. This is why your spirit has grown too big for certain rooms. Someone else may be thriving there. Others may feel fed there. But you've shifted dimensions, and what feeds the crowd can no longer feed the called. Anointed one. God is not taking you away from Himself. He is taking you away from anything that dilutes Him. You've reached a point where God no longer wants you to depend on second-hand revelation. You were never meant to live off spiritual leftovers, recycled sermons, or faith that depends on someone else's intimacy. You were created to hear Him directly, to walk with Him personally, to carry Him boldly. The season of being spoon-fed is ending. The season of encountering God for yourself is beginning. And yes, it feels unfamiliar. Yes, it feels lonely at times. Yes, it even feels scary when everything around you says stay where it's safe, but everything inside you says step where it's sacred. But I promise you, this kind of discomfort is not a sign of spiritual decline. It is the unmistakable mark of spiritual elevation. When God is shifting your identity, He shifts your appetite. When He is enlarging your spirit, He disrupts your comfort. When He is preparing you for greater authority, He begins separating you from places that trained you but can no longer contain you. Chosen one. Listen closely. God is pulling you closer, not pushing you away. This is why His presence has been heavier in your room than in the building. This is why your deepest encounters have happened in your car, on your bed, in the silence, in the moments when no one is watching. God isn't confined to walls. He is revealing himself to you without them. And here's the truth. Few people talk about sometimes God removes you from certain places because what he's about to give you would make you outgrow everyone around you. Some environments cannot handle your next level. Some systems cannot sustain your new anointing. Some people cannot comprehend the weight you're about to carry. And because God loves you deeply, fiercely, jealously, he will not allow you to stay in places that would suffocate what he has placed within you. What you are stepping into now requires clarity, not noise, intimacy, not routine, encounters, not rituals, revelation, not tradition. You are entering a season where God wants to speak to you in ways you've never heard him before, and that requires separation. Chosen one, do not fear this shift. I know what it feels like. I've lived it. I've walked through the quiet seasons where God is the only voice you can hear. And though it feels like loss at first, it becomes one of the most supernatural, life-changing seasons of your journey. Because this isn't the end of something, it is the beginning of everything. Chosen one. Now that you've begun to sense this holy unraveling, this divine pulling away from what once felt comfortable, let me tell you something with clarity and compassion. What you are stepping into is not just a shift. It is a separation ordained by God himself. Separation is never easy for the flesh, but it is always necessary for the spirit. And if heaven is pulling you away from certain places, certain people, certain rituals, certain rhythms, it's because those environments can no longer sustain the calling that's waking up inside you. Anointed one, there is a reason you feel out of place where you used to feel at home. There's a reason you feel unseen by people who once claimed to know you. There's a reason you feel spiritually starved in systems that once fed you. This is not confusion. This is confirmation. God is rearranging the landscape of your life, not to punish you, but to prepare you. When God elevates, he isolates. When God promotes, he separates. When God shifts, he disrupts. I learned this the hard way. I went through a season where it felt like I no longer belonged anywhere. I wasn't running from God, but it felt like everything familiar was running from me. Conversations that once felt natural suddenly felt shallow. Spiritual spaces that once felt vibrant suddenly felt hollow. People I depended on spiritually suddenly couldn't understand my hunger. It felt like I was losing everything, but in reality, God was removing everything that couldn't grow with me. And that's what's happening to you now, chosen one. Heaven is thinning the crowd around you. God is simplifying your surroundings so he can amplify your hearing. You've been asking him to draw nearer, and this is what it looks like. He pulls you away from the noise so you can finally hear his whisper. He pulls you out of routine so you can experience relationship. He pulls you out of tradition so you can encounter truth. This is why your sensitivity has increased, why your spirit reacts quickly when something feels off, why you can no longer tolerate shallow spiritual environments. When God is elevating you, your discernment becomes sharper than your comfort. And what once satisfied you now feels foreign because your spirit is rising into a new dimension. Anointed one, you are not called to blend in. You are called to break out. You're stepping into a supernatural season where God himself becomes your teacher, your guide, your mentor, and yes, your source. This is where the divine financial shift begins, not in the system, but in your surrender. Heaven cannot pour into containers that are still tied to old structures. So God loosens your hands. He empties the things you once held tightly. He removes the things you leaned on for security, not to leave you empty, but to make room for the supernatural. This next level requires a different kind of faith, a quieter faith, a deeper trust, a willingness to walk with God, even when you don't know the next step. But chosen one, hear me, this is the same path walked by every person God ever elevated. Every prophet, every leader, every world shifter. Before they rose, they walked through seasons that felt like displacement. But that displacement was the birthplace of destiny. You're not being pulled out of structures because you failed them. You're being pulled out because you surpassed them. You've outgrown what once sustained you. You're being ushered into a season where God speaks to you directly, not through the voice of routine, but through the voice of revelation. And here's the deeper truth: your calling requires intimacy. Your anointing requires solitude. Your next breakthrough requires proximity to God, not proximity to a system. This is why you can feel when something is no longer enough. This is why your spirit knows when you're being called higher. This is why every part of your soul has been whispering, "There is more." Chosen. One heaven is aligning you with your divine purpose. This separation is not abandonment, it's advancement. You're stepping into a chapter where your spirit will not just grow, it will transform. Where your faith won't just strengthen, it will ignite. Where your life won't just change, it will elevate into something supernatural. You're walking away from what was because you're walking into what will be. Chosen one, now that God has begun separating you from the familiar, something even deeper is beginning to unfold within you. This is the phase where heaven starts rewiring your identity, not the identity you learned, not the identity others projected onto you, but the identity God wrote over your life before time began. And when that divine identity begins to awaken, everything that no longer aligns with it starts falling away. Not because you're breaking things, but because truth is breaking through you. Anointed one. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something holy is being born. You are in the spiritual in-between, no longer who you used to be, but not yet walking fully as who you truly are. This middle space is sacred. It's where God removes the false layers that life, religion, guilt, fear, and expectation have placed on you. It's where He detoxes your soul from every environment that taught you to shrink. It's where He heals what you never had the words to articulate. And it's where He prepares you for the weight of the supernatural calling on your life. I went through this too, and it almost scared me because the version of myself I had built for years began to crumble. The ministries I leaned on, the routines I trusted, the voices I depended on, suddenly none of them were enough, and I felt exposed. I felt unanchored, but now I understand why. God wasn't taking my foundation, He was replacing it. He wasn't removing my covering, He was becoming it. And chosen one, that is what He is doing in you right now. This is the season where you stop living from borrowed faith and start living from awakened faith. Where you stop waiting for someone to validate your spiritual hunger and finally recognize that the hunger itself is your confirmation. Others may not understand why you've changed. They may expect you to keep showing up in the same places, participating in the same routines, feeding on the same spiritual diet. But chosen one, you cannot force your spirit back into environments it has outgrown. A healed version of you cannot thrive in places that were designed for your wounded version. A transformed you cannot stay in systems that only knew how to feed your old self. And here's the truth that many will not tell you. Sometimes God allows the disconnect so you won't feel guilty for leaving. Sometimes He allows the hunger to increase so you won't settle for crumbs. Sometimes He allows the discomfort to intensify so that you won't cling to a season that has expired. God is not punishing you. He is protecting your next anointed one. What you're stepping into requires spiritual clarity like never before. Your discernment is sharpening. Your intuition is becoming more accurate. Your spiritual senses are waking up. Even your dreams and your inner promptings are shifting. This is heaven training you for the next dimension of assignment. When you feel spiritual noise, it's because God is activating spiritual hearing. When you feel the urge to withdraw, it's because He is cultivating sensitivity. When you feel the need to spend more time alone with Him, it's because intimacy is now your compass. And this is also where the supernatural begins to surface. In seasons like this, God often starts revealing things before they happen. He gives you glimpses, warnings, instructions, answers you didn't even pray for yet. It's because He's preparing you to live from revelation, not routine. To walk by divine instruction, not by human expectation. To depend on His voice, not on tradition. This is also the phase where heaven begins aligning the financial side of your calling, not because money is the goal, but because resources are necessary for the mission God is awakening in you. When He enlarges your spirit, He enlarges your capacity. And when He enlarges your capacity, He begins arranging the supernatural provision that your next assignment requires. You're stepping into a season where divine connections, unexpected opportunities, financial release, and supernatural favor will begin to appear in ways you never experienced before. Why? Because now you can carry it. Now you can steward it. Now your identity aligns with your destiny. Chosen one. You are not being separated from your old life. You are being summoned into your true one. This is the rebirth of purpose, the awakening of identity, the unfolding of the divine blueprint written over your life. What you're feeling is destiny pressing through the cracks of everything that once tried to confine you. And trust me, what is coming will make sense of every moment that didn't. Chosen one. Now that God has awakened your identity and begun aligning your spirit with your true calling, there is something even more profound happening beneath the surface. He is teaching you how to walk with Him in a dimension that very few ever enter. This is the phase where God begins to show you what it truly means to live by revelation, instead of routine, by intimacy, instead of institution, by divine direction, instead of human approval. Anointed one. You've probably noticed that in this season your spirit is far more sensitive than before. Conversations that used to feel normal now feel draining. Environments that once felt comfortable now feel heavy. People who once felt familiar now feel distant. This is not you becoming withdrawn. This is you becoming refined. When God elevates you spiritually, your discernment becomes your protection. You begin hearing subtleties others overlook. You sense the spiritual temperature of a room. You feel when something aligns with your spirit and when it does not. This is part of your prophetic wiring being activated. And yes, this level of spiritual awareness can make you feel misunderstood. It can make you feel like you no longer fit anywhere. I remember going through this exact shift, feeling like I had outgrown conversations, outgrown spiritual circles, outgrown beliefs I once held tightly. For a moment, I thought something was wrong with me, but God eventually showed me the truth. Nothing was wrong. Everything was awakening, chosen. One, hear me clearly. When God decides to mature your spirit, He will dismantle everything that tries to confine you to shallow waters. He will strip away the noise, the opinions, the traditions, and even the expectation that you must always stay where you started. Because God is not building you to remain in a spiritual classroom. He is building you to become a carrier of revelation, a vessel of truth, a voice that speaks not from borrowed understanding, but from divine encounter. This is why God is pulling you away from religious routine. It's why the structure of church as usual no longer stirs your spirit. You're not being rebellious. You're being reassigned. The place that once nurtured you has become too small for what God is doing inside you. Like a tree planted in a small pot, you have reached the edges of a container that can no longer hold your roots. And the discomfort you feel, that is your spirit pushing against limitations that were never meant to last forever. Anointed One, what God is calling you into requires room to grow, room to hear, room to become. God is expanding your spiritual capacity so that you can carry the next assignment with power and clarity. He is calling you into the secret place, into the quiet room of revelation, into the wilderness, where His voice becomes louder than every sermon you've ever heard. Not because church is wrong, but because your mission is different. This next part is important. When God enlarges your spirit, He will also enlarge your responsibility. And this responsibility often begins with solitude, not isolation, but divine separation. When God calls a person higher, He always pulls them away before He sends them forward. Moses was pulled away. Elijah was pulled away. David was pulled away. Even Jesus withdrew to solitary places to hear the Father clearly. The wilderness is not punishment. It is preparation. And in that sacred solitude, something extraordinary happens. God begins revealing your next assignment. Not the assignment given to your community, not the assignment given to your family, not the assignment given to the church, but the assignment given to you. Your personal mission, your personal mantle, your personal destiny. Chosen One. This is also the season where God begins shifting the resources around your life. Financial changes, new opportunities, unexpected connections. These are not coincidences. They are divine provisions aligning with your divine purpose. When God elevates your calling, He allocates the resources required to fulfill it. You may notice ideas coming faster, creativity, increasing favor, opening doors you didn't knock on. These are indicators that heaven is preparing to trust you with more. But understand this, God doesn't pour supernatural provision into someone who is still trying to live confined to the expectations of others. That's why He separated you. That's why He refined you. That's why He awakened you. Heaven only funds identity, not imitation. And now that you are stepping into your true identity, the flow of provision is about to increase spiritually, emotionally, financially, and prophetically. You may not feel ready. You may not feel qualified. But readiness was never the requirement, willingness is. God doesn't call the prepared. He prepares the called, and you, chosen one, have been called. Your spirit is not malfunctioning, it is maturing. Your life is not falling apart, it is being rebuilt. You are not losing your place, you are finding your destiny. And everything God is doing within you right now is leading you to a single truth. You were made for this next dimension, chosen one. Now that God has drawn you into this sacred solitude and begun revealing the contours of your true calling, there is another layer unfolding, a layer that deals not just with who you are becoming, but with what you are being trusted with. You see, when God separates you, He is not merely removing you from an old space. He is preparing to place something weighty, something holy, something destiny shaping into your hands. And before he does, he must ensure that your spirit is anchored in him alone. Anointed One. This is the season where God begins to test the strength of your surrender. Not your emotions, not your appearance of faith, not your words, but your surrender, because destiny requires yieldedness. And true yieldedness can only be discovered when God asks you to walk a path that makes no sense to anyone but Him. This is why your journey feels so different from those around you. Others can stay where they are and still feel spiritually fed. But you feel empty in places where others feel full. Others can settle for routine, but your spirit rebels against anything that feels habitual or hollow. Others can follow tradition, but you crave truth. And that is because you were never called to survive spiritually, you were called to carry spiritually. Your life is not meant to be a reflection of what everyone else does. Your life is meant to be a reflection of what God is unveiling to you personally. And this is where the divine pressure begins. It is not the pressure of punishment, it is the pressure of molding, the pressure of shaping, the pressure of refinement. God is refining your loyalty, your discernment, your courage, your focus. He is teaching you the discipline of listening deeply and obeying quickly, because the next chapter of your calling will require obedience that bypasses logic. God will ask you to step when you cannot see the ground, to speak when your voice trembles, to move when everything in your flesh says, "Stay, chosen one." This is also the season where heaven begins cleansing the voices around you. When God prepares to entrust you with influence, He first removes every voice that could distort your clarity. You may notice certain friendships drifting, certain relationships losing their grip, certain people no longer having access to your inner world. It may feel like loss, but it is protection. God is guarding your spirit so that no one else can contaminate what He is planting in you. I know what this feels like, the confusion, the loneliness, the sense that something is being taken away. But years later, when I looked back, I realized God was not taking anything from me. He was building me into someone who could no longer depend on people for spiritual direction. He wanted me to trust Him alone, and chosen one, that is what He is doing in you now. And then there is the part most people overlook. When God purifies your circle, He also purifies your desires. Suddenly, you have no appetite for drama, no space for chaos, no tolerance for spiritual compromise. You become allergic to anything that tries to pull you away from purpose. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Activities that once distracted you now irritate your spirit. This is the sign that God is aligning your soul with destiny. Anointed One, your spiritual hunger is increasing because your spiritual assignment is increasing. Your discernment is sharpening because your responsibility is sharpening. There is a deeper layer of calling waiting for you, one that cannot be activated while you remain tied to people, places, or patterns that belong to an older version of yourself. And here is where the supernatural begins to intensify as God draws you deeper into intimacy. He begins giving you spiritual previews, glimpses of what is coming. You may start sensing breakthroughs before they manifest. You may start feeling shifts before they occur. You may start receiving instruction that seems unusual but proves to be divine. This is the prophetic dimension awakening in you. Chosen one part of this awakening is tied to divine provision. Hear me clearly. When God calls you into a higher assignment, He does not expect you to finance it through human strength. Heaven sponsors what heaven births, and you are entering a season where supernatural provision will begin to locate you. Unexpected opportunities, financial favor, open doors, resources that flow not because you chase them, but because purpose requires them. God is not preparing you for survival. He is preparing you for stewardship. And He will never elevate you spiritually without preparing to elevate you financially, not for vanity, but for purpose. This is why He is stripping you of dependence on systems. This is why He is removing the old safety nets. He is teaching you to trust His supply so He can entrust you with His abundance. Chosen one, you are not just stepping out of an old season. You are stepping into leadership, spiritual leadership, personal leadership, destiny leadership. And leaders are formed in hidden places long before they are revealed in visible ones. You are in that sacred formation now. Oh, chosen one, now that heaven has awakened your identity, purified your circle, and aligned your inner world with divine purpose, you are being ushered into one of the most powerful phases of your journey, the phase where God begins teaching you how to walk in your authority. Not borrowed authority, not imitated authority, but the authority that was written into your spirit before you were even born. This is the season where you stop asking for permission to be who God called you to be, and you finally rise into the fullness of your spiritual stature. Anointed One authority is not loud, it is not boastful, it is not aggressive. True authority is quiet, steady, rooted, immovable. True authority is knowing, not hoping, not wishing, but knowing that heaven backs you, that God walks with you, that angels surround you, that purpose is unfolding through you. And when you know these things, you no longer crave validation because you're too busy carrying revelation. But before God lets you walk in that level of spiritual certainty, He first removes everything in you that makes you doubt your own voice. This is why you've been wrestling with questions recently, questions about your worth, your power, your direction, your place, your next step. This isn't insecurity, this is inventory. God is helping you recognize what is not you, so He can strengthen what is you. And here's the truth that many never understand. Before God elevates your assignment, He elevates your self-perception. Before He expands your influence, He expands your inner stability. Before He increases your platform, He increases your spiritual backbone. Chosen one, you cannot walk in divine authority with a wounded identity. You cannot steward supernatural resources with a scarcity mindset. You cannot carry a prophetic mantle while questioning if you truly belong in the room. So God has been healing, refining, exposing, correcting, and rebuilding you not to break you down, but to raise you up. And now heaven is shifting you into a season where your voice begins to matter in ways you never imagined. Your words carry more weight. Your presence carries more influence. Your discernment holds more power. People may not fully understand what changed, but they will feel it, because God is no longer just working in you, He is working through you. Anointed one, this is where boldness begins to rise. Not arrogance, boldness. The kind that comes from knowing God has been preparing you in secret for something public. The kind that comes from walking through seasons you didn't think you'd survive. The kind that comes from facing darkness and discovering light inside yourself. The kind that comes from realizing that everything the enemy tried to use to break you actually built you. This is the moment where heaven says, "Step forward." And your spirit answers, "I am ready." And with this readiness comes another shift, the shift of divine responsibility. You will start noticing that people come to you for clarity. They come to you for encouragement. They come to you for wisdom, comfort, and spiritual perspective. Not because you're trying to lead them, but because your spirit emits a frequency that people feel drawn to. You carry peace. You carry depth. You carry truth. You carry presence. This is what happens when someone walks in their calling. You become a lighthouse without trying. Chosen one. This authority will also begin affecting your external world. Things that once stayed stuck will begin to move. Situations that once resisted will begin to open. Environments that once drained you will begin to shift. You will find favor in unexpected places. Resources will appear right when you need them. Doors will open without you touching them. Because when a person steps into divine authority, heaven backs their footsteps. But understand, this authority requires responsibility. God is now trusting you with atmospheres, not just moments, with impact, not just inspiration, with influence, not just information. You will be sent into places where your presence disrupts darkness. You will speak words that unlock breakthrough in others. You will carry an energy that unsettles what is false and uplifts what is true. This is why your spirit has been growing quieter, more watchful, more discerning. You're not withdrawing, you're transforming. You're not distancing, you're deepening. You're not losing interest, you're gaining clarity. Anointed One, you are stepping into a life where you don't just follow God, you walk with Him. Where you don't just pray for change, you become change. Where you don't seek platforms, you carry purpose. Where you don't chase opportunities, opportunities chase you. And here is the most powerful part. This authority prepares you for the supernatural transfer that is coming. Whether it is a financial outpouring, a divine promotion, a new assignment, or a shift in influence, heaven always releases provision to those who have been prepared to steward it. You are in that preparation now. Chosen One, your rise has already begun, quietly, invisibly, spiritually, and soon it will become undeniable. Chosen One, now that God has awakened your authority, strengthened your identity, and positioned your spirit for supernatural assignment, you are standing at the threshold of the most powerful phase of your journey, the phase where breakthrough becomes reality, where prophecy becomes manifestation, where everything God has been shaping in secret begins to unfold in the open. Anointed One, this is not just another chapter. This is the unveiling of your purpose, the elevation of your calling. The moment heaven begins to release the very things you were once too small to receive, too wounded to carry, or too uncertain to steward. You have crossed the line between preparation and activation. You're now stepping into fulfillment. This is why life has felt intense lately, why the spiritual pressure increased, why the pruning was deep, why the separation felt painful. Heaven has been clearing your path for divine release. Everything that once felt like loss was actually making room. Everything that once looked like delay was actually sacred timing. Everything that felt like God was pulling away was actually God pulling you closer. And now, Chosen One, the season of breaking is giving way to the season of breakthrough. There is a reason your faith feels sharper. There is a reason your spirit feels lighter. There is a reason you've been sensing expectancy rising in your soul. Something is about to shift for you, and this time, it won't be subtle. It will be undeniable. This is where the supernatural transfer begins. For months, maybe years, God has been preparing your capacity, expanding your inner container so you can handle what you once prayed for. Some people receive blessings that break them because their spirit was too small to hold them. But you, Anointed One, have been expanded, stretched, strengthened, refined. Your spirit is now large enough to carry what heaven is about to release. And that release will look different for every chosen one. For some, it will be financial, a divine influx that comes through unexpected avenues, restored opportunities, miraculous provision, or long-awaited compensation. For others, it will be influence, new platforms, new visibility, new favor that elevates your voice. For others it will be healing cycles, breaking patterns, dissolving generational suffering, ending with you. And for many it will be clarity, a sudden knowing, a firm direction, a divine strategy that unlocks the next stage of your life. But no matter how it unfolds, the source will be the same, heaven, and the purpose will be the same, assignment. Chosen one, this breakthrough is not coming to entertain you. It is coming to empower you, to establish you, to position you. God is not answering your prayers simply to make your life easier. He is answering them to make your purpose possible. And because this blessing is tied to destiny, nothing and no one can stop it. Not delay, not jealousy, not resistance, not spiritual warfare, not the mistakes of your past, not the opinions of others. What is meant for your calling cannot be stolen by someone else's insecurity. This is why God separated you, to protect what He is about to place in your hands. Anointed one, there will come a moment in the weeks ahead where you'll realize that everything you went through was necessary. Every wilderness season had a purpose. Every quiet night had a meaning. Every closed door was a divine redirection. Every pruning was a setup for power. You will look back and say, God, you didn't take anything from me. You were preparing me for everything. And the world around you will notice. Not because you boast, not because you perform, but because the glory of God will rise upon you in a way that cannot be hidden. You will speak differently, think differently, move differently, love differently, discern differently, walk differently, because you are no longer operating from earthly identity, you're operating from divine identity. Chosen one, you have not just survived. You have not just endured, you have been transformed. And this transformation is what qualifies you for the supernatural transfer heaven is releasing. God is not trusting you with overflow by accident. He is trusting you because you have proven in private that your heart can hold it. And now a final truth. You are not returning to who you were. You are not going back to old circles, old systems, or old spiritual structures. You are not shrinking to fit old expectations. You are rising. The version of you that is emerging is the version heaven had in mind all along. The version that hears God, clearly walks, boldly, moves, intentionally, loves deeply, and carries spiritual authority with humility and fire. Chosen one. The wilderness is over. The waiting is over. The breaking is over. The silence is over. You are stepping into fulfillment, and nothing can stop what God has ordained. What comes next will not just bless you, it will reveal you. Chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred message, let your spirit rest in the truth that you are not stepping into uncertainty, you are stepping into divine timing. Every shift you felt, every separation you've endured, every whisper that stirred your soul has been leading you to this exact Kairos moment. Heaven has not only called you out, heaven is now ushering you forward. Anointed one, the supernatural transfer has already begun. The realignment, the clarity, the provision, the elevation, it is unfolding even now. You are not returning to an old season. You are rising into the one God handcrafted specifically for you. Walk with reverence. Walk with expectation. Walk knowing that the God who led you out will also lead you through. May your steps be guided, your spirit be strengthened, and your discernment be sharpened. May you feel the nearness of God in every quiet moment and the boldness of purpose in every new decision. You have been set apart, you have been refined, and now you have been released. Chosen one. If this word touched something deep within you, let it echo by declaring it in the comments. And if your heart feels led, stay connected so you never miss the next word aligned with your destiny. Until we meet again, stay faithful, stay awakened, and stay aligned with the flow of the anointing. You are chosen, you are ready, and heaven is moving on your behalf.